Eating disorder and disordered eating, they sound really similar, but they're actually pretty different. And I hear the question a lot about what is the difference. Stick around to this video and we'll talk about what that difference is. But first, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie. I'm Long Island's eating disorder specialist. I talk all about eating disorders, body image issues, and general mental health. So if any of that interests you, please click the subscribe button down below. And I also have an Instagram and a weekly blog. I will leave those links in the description below. You most likely, if you're watching this video, you most definitely already have heard the term eating disorder, or if you're just awake in, society today, you've heard of eating disorders. You may or may not, however, have heard of disordered eating. And if you haven't, or if you have, you may still be very confused about what the term is and what it means and how is it different from eating disorders, because literally you just swap the words around and it's a very different thing. All right, so let's start by picking them apart. Let's start with eating disorders. The two big things that really decipher an eating disorder from disordered eating is that, one, eating disorders are really used as a coping mechanism. I did a whole video on it. I'll leave that link in the description below. But basically what that means is that when we go to cope with something that's going on in our lives, whether that's something that, relationship breakup or depression or anxiety or whatever, we cope in some way. There are healthy coping skills such as bike riding, journaling, yoga, those types of things, and then there are unhealthy coping skills, one of them being turning to food as a source of control or just coping with the feelings that you are experiencing. The other aspect of eating disorders that really differentiates it from disordered eating is that a person with an eating disorder is consumed with thoughts and just everything is about food. Food. And everyone doesn't really seem to notice that unless you are struggling with an eating disorder. A lot of people, this is totally a side note, but a lot of people feel like they're almost a fraud in their eating disorder because all their thoughts are consumed with food. But that actually is a big piece of eating disorders. Everyone who struggles with an eating disorder, particularly anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder, their life really is surrounded around with food, thoughts of food. Sometimes people now will ask, where does the chronic dieters fall under? So the people who tend to be on a diet all the time, are on a new diet all the time, a lot of times I would say that they can fall under both, depending on the situation and the circumstances under which their chronic dieting takes place. So if they are just chronic dieters, but it really doesn't seem to interfere super much, if at all, with their life, and it's really not all consuming to them, then I would say that falls more under the category of disordered eating. The chronic dieters that, again, the deciding factor really, or what I would argue would be the deciding factor, would be when it starts to consume you. So the chronic dieters that can't go out to eat because it doesn't fall under their diet plan, or they're very, very strict with their sticking with their diet constantly, that's going to fall under more of an eating disorder. Unfortunately, most people are really unaware of their disordered eating because, especially in the Western culture, it's just more of the norm to kind of have disordered eating patterns as opposed to having a very healthy relationship with food and non-disordered eating patterns. But again, that's a whole other topic for, another day. Disordered eaters, it can develop into an eating disorder if it continues and if it goes unchecked. Not all people who have disordered eating, and a lot of people who have disordered eating, don't actually develop an eating disorder. So it's not something that I would be super freaked out about if that's what is on your mind. But I do believe that everyone could benefit from getting help. It's important to take inventory of yourself, to take inventory of, is this impacting my life? Is my relationship with food impacting my life in a not positive ways? Is it impacting my life in a negative way? And if you're finding that the answer to that is yes, that it is starting to impact your life in non-positive ways, then I would really urge you to consider getting help. And I would urge you to find someone who works with eating disorders. I know I talk about this all the time, but just because they do work specifically with food and all of that, so it's something that I would definitely tailor yourself to getting an eating disorder therapist, because they can also also help with disordered eating, but also finding a nutritionist that usually takes a non-diet approach. Most nutritionists really focus on dieting, and that could perpetuate disordered eating and eating disorders. So I'd really encourage you to find a nutritionist that adopts the non-diet approach, because that's really the only way that you can, at least in my experience, that you could develop a healthy relationship with food without it being restrictive or, constricting you in just a way that you're not really able to get the full, freedom from food, having such control over your life. Now, this is something I really need to address, because some people with eating disorders may say, oh, it's not that bad, maybe I'm more of a disordered eater. And again, that is just a way that your eating disorder can discount what you actually are going through. So if you think that you may be struggling with the eating disorder, do not take this video to downgrade what you actually have, because that could be really, really dangerous when you're not really facing what is going on within you. And know that if you ever are finding yourself saying, oh, maybe it's not that bad, more often than not, it is the eating disorder that is doing that. It is the eating disorder voice that is doing that and making you feel that it's not that bad. Because why does it do that? Well, it's actually pretty brilliant if you're thinking about it from an eating disorder perspective, because when you acknowledge that you have an eating disorder and actually reach out to help, you are reaching out to have someone help you get rid of the eating disorder. And I know it sounds a little weird. Did a whole video on it. Again, I will leave that link in the description below. But when it comes to eating disorders, it's almost like you have another person inside of you that's trying to keep you sick, and it doesn't want to go away. So it's not going to want you to get help. So that's why the eating disorder could be really, really tricky and trying to make you seem like you're not as sick. And I'll leave videos, like I said, in the description below to a bunch of things that can really help you with that dilemma if that's what you're going through. I hope that you found this video helpful and informative. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Also, leave a comment down below if you have any questions about maybe a situation that you're kind of trying to decipher. Might that be more of a disordered eater or more of an eating disorder, or any of your thoughts on this topic? You could click my face over here to subscribe to my channel, and I wish you food freedom on your journey to finding your state of balance. I'll see you in my next video.